You're listening to XVGM Radio. Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Mike.
And I'm Justin.
And this is episode 49, licensed from the 80s.
Woo, all right.
Yeah, totally tubular, bro. So today we are going to be talking about franchises or licenses that came from the 80s. So stuff from like movies, cartoons, comics, that sort of thing. Mostly like movies and cartoons, though.
Yeah.
And how they kind of influence us. Did we watch them? Did we experience them? We're going to pick some stuff that is going to be really awesome, but I don't think we're going to pick a lot of stuff that people are going to be like, oh, yeah, I knew they were going to pick that. So I think this episode will be pretty fresh.
Especially one of these tracks.
Yeah. So we are recording in two separate locations today due to the current situation that our country is under regarding coronavirus. So
worldwide, it's like a worldwide pandemic at this point.
It is, yeah. It's not just America, United States, it's everywhere. So in order to practice social distancing, and also because our governor shut down all non-essential businesses and, for various other reasons, we decided that we're going to, at least for the time being, record in separate locations. So Justin is recording from his house, I'm recording from my house, and since I have the mixer, I sound much better than Justin. So eat it, Justin.
I'm used to it. You always sound better than me.
Aw, that's so sweet of you to say, but it's not true.
But yeah, so I am at home recording on a piece of our old equipment, the Yeti Blue Yeti microphone, connected through my computer, and we are called in over Discord, and we are keeping an eye on each other via Skype.
This is Skype camera, so that's
so complicated.
It is quite surreal, but when these sort of situations happen, we have to, the show must go on. So we are going to continue putting out content for you. Our podcast will continue to go on unless, something dire happens. But, yeah.
Yes. But we will continue to do this so as safely as possible.
Yes, for sure. So the track that we came in on for the intro was G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero. I don't know if you caught that, by the consistent Yo Joes or Yo Bros.
Yo Bros.
Yeah. Got to get tough. Yo Bro.
Yo Joe. Real American Hero.
So this game came out in the arcade in 1992, and this was from Mission 1-1. It's by Tsutomu Ogura and Kenichiro Fukui. What do you think of this track?
It was pretty rockin'. So for an episode based on licensed properties from the 80s, it felt very 80s. I also used to watch the G.I. Joe cartoon when I was a kid.
Okay.
So I have to say that this sounded like what I remember the G.I. Joe cartoon to sound like.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is I never really was into G.I. Joe as a kid. Yeah.
I don't know if I was into it per se, but I distinctly remember daycare and kindergarten, and when it was like there was a certain period of time that was usually like TV time, or maybe it was like the TV was on and at all times, and I would go to it during a certain block. But G.I. Joe was fun to watch. I was more into like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe and Thundercats and stuff like that. But they used to let us watch G.I. Joe, and it was fun. Like I always liked Cobra Commander. Yeah, the silver face mask, and he just had that voice.
I think his name was Chris something or other, and he died, unfortunately. He passed away.
Yes.
Which is a shame because he was like such a memorable character as
Christopher
both.
Collins, I think.
Yes, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, he passed away. You know, I've heard other Starscreams before and Cobra Commanders, and they just don't sync up as well, in my opinion. So.
No, I agree. Like that voice is not really easily replicatable.
No.
Hard set of shoes to fill.
Yeah, very iconic. And then, actually, there was I think it was a first for a cartoon. Well, actually, no, it wasn't, because He-Man had a bad female villain.
Evil Lynn.
Evil Lynn, yes, but G.I. Joe had Baroness. That was her name.
Baroness, that's right.
Baroness,
yep,
yeah. So that was pretty cool that, you know, they were at the time really pushing like equality back then. You know, they had the female and male bad guys, so that was pretty dope. So this game is I believe it's like an on-rail shooter, if I recall, in the sense that the camera is behind you and you are running towards the screen, like Contra
and like those in between level missions.
Yeah, in the NES Contra, those ones with the rolling pins, where they had the rolling pins and you had to shoot. Right. So it's like that, but there's a crosshair in the middle of the screen, and you can move the joystick like left or right in order to shoot. It's pretty cool. I actually played this game back in the day, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
but yeah, you play as
so
different.
It was a joystick, not like a light gun or anything.
Yeah, it was just a joystick, if I recall. It wasn't a light gun.
Huh.
Yeah. So you would get to use a standard like firing button, and then you also had like a missile launch, which is like a bomb sort of thing that would like blow up everything. You could play as 4 different characters: Duke, Snake Eyes, Scarlet, or Roadblock. So, and the bosses consisted of Tomax and Xamot, which I think it's Xamot, Xamot.
Yeah, they're the twins. They have the same name forward and backwards.
Oh yeah, they do. That's funny. Metalhead, the Baroness, Major Blood, and Destro. And the final battle is Cobra Commander. So yeah, it's a really cool game. Like, if you can track it down, it's well worth a play. Unfortunately, it is locked to the arcade. It's never been ported elsewhere, and I'm sure there's tons of licensing issues that would prevent it from happening.
Oh yeah.
But this was, if you couldn't have guessed, this was definitely a Konami jam.
Oh yeah.
Because of those synth hits alone. I mean, it was just like a rockin' 80s synth guitars track.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's very chuggy. I like that.
Yeah. Tsutomu Ogura has worked on quite a bit of Konami stuff, starting off with The Adventures of Bayou Billy
Yes.
in 1988, and then followed by Snake's Revenge in 1990, and then did a sound direction on a game called NBA Give and Go, which has an excellent soundtrack. Then did I'm jumping around here, but they did Deadly Arts in 1998 as a sound assistant producer, and then their final game was a director of audio, and that was ESPN NBA Tonight. The other composer, Kenichiro Fukui, a little bit more well-known for their work starting off with Sunset Riders in 1991, where they did sound effects. Musically, though, their first game was Lethal Enforcers in 92, followed by the G.I. Joe game, where they did sound design. And so no actual composer credits for this game, but I assume that, sound design, they designed the sound, so they did the music. And since this guy has been doing the compositions for other games, he did Violent Storm in 93, which has an excellent soundtrack, as well as Einhander in 1997.
Ooh,
yep, was the composer on that. And then he did a bunch of like music director roles for stuff like Project Sylphied, Arc of Deception, which was a Square Enix game, I think, on the Xbox 360. Then bounced around working for Square Enix with games like Lord of Arcana in 2010, a PSP exclusive, I believe, and then Final Fantasy XIV Online in 2010. Their final game was Kingdom Hearts 3 in 2019, where they were labeled as additional composers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, I don't personally have a lot of experience with G.I. Joe, as I said before. The only thing that I remember was I had these stickers that I put on my Mario lunchbox. And
nice.
they had a 3D image that you could only see with like one of those like 3D like red and blue like glasses type thing.
Oh yeah.
But like it was just the red.
Those.
Yeah, but it was just the red. So you would like highlight over the image and then you can see whatever it was. It was kind of neat.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
So I'm kicking this one off for this episode. So we are going to play a track from Ghostbusters 2 on the NES in the year of 1990 that it was released. So it did. I also want to preface this with, even though a good chunk of the games that we're talking about came out in the 90s, the whole point of this episode is that it was licensed from the 80s.
From the 80s,
right?
Yes.
So
they're 80s properties, just in general.
Exactly right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be released in the 80s as far as the actual game or soundtrack. So, so this is Ghostbusters 2. This is the Activision version of the game, because there was also the Ghostbusters, the new Ghostbusters game that HAL came out with, but this is the Activision one. This is driving music, and we think, pretty sure, it's by Mark Van Hecke and or Frank Covitz. All right, welcome back. That was Ghostbusters 2, the 1990 NES game. It was developed by Imagineering and published by Activision, just to clarify. It's based on the 1989 movie Ghostbusters 2, and that track that we listened to is called Driving Music, and it's by Mark Van Hecke and Frank Covitz. We'll kind of get into that in just a minute. What did you think of the song?
It was really cool. It was really groovy. Groovy's not the right word, but I mean, you probably saw me like bopping and dancing to this one. Mm-hmm. It was very bouncy. Like listening to the song, I wouldn't say, "Oh yeah, that's a Ghostbusters song," right? Regardless, it's really cool. Yeah. And if this is, as it's called, the driving music, I'm guessing this is what plays during the scenes where you're driving Ecto-1.
Yes,
I can see this as driving music in especially in like an NES era video game.
I have much nostalgia for this game. I had this game back in the day, which is really funny because I never saw any Ghostbusters movie. I only saw the cartoon. Right. I played this game to death. I love this game. Even though it's not the greatest game, it's totally playable once you figure out how to play. Most of the stages are side-scrolling. You're controlling one of the various Ghostbusters, and you're moving from either right to left or left to right. There's a lot of moving right to left in this game, which is...
Oh, that's backwards for most of us old-school gamers.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. I mean, like, there's the first level where you're in the subway. That's right to left. Then there's a driving level, and then there's another level where you're in the courthouse, I think, and that's also right to left. And then it gets fuzzy. But I've beaten this one a few times. What's funny is the way that the game ends is very similar to the movie, where you have to control the Statue of Liberty.
Yes.
And you have to like blast all these like little baby ghosts that are like flying all around. They're doing like little like circly motions. It's like synchronized floating. It's super weird. They're all like doing little twirlies and like going all over the place. It's so silly. The driving stages in particular are especially nostalgic because I cannot hear this song without hearing all the sound effects from this game because they are so burned into my brain. The way that the driving stages work is there's obviously driving the Ecto-1, and these stages typically do go from left to right. It's super weird. Like the regular action stages go from right to left, and then the driving stages go from left to right. So I don't know. You're driving through the streets of New York, and you can hit these like purple arrows that'll make you speed up. And so the noise for that, it's like blah, and then after you hit that, you typically will be faced with a section where you have to jump off of the road. Basically, like the road's missing. Mm-hmm. So it's like a Battletoads sort of thing where you've got to figure out where the arrows are going to be and then jump off the road and then land on the other road on the other side. And some of the jumps get really tricky. Not quite Battletoads tricky, but like super tricky. There's the sound effect when you fall, like down the hole. So all I hear is the ramp is going like doodle and then like missing a jump or screwing it up, and then I hear the ooh like falling motion. No. So it's like burned in my brain. I cannot hear the song without hearing those sound effects.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's unfortunate. Well, that is unfortunate, I guess.
Well, yeah.
Especially if it's the sounds of failure.
Yeah. Oh man, the sound of failure is just so satisfying. That should be like our tagline for XVGM, like
XVGM radio, where the bits keep coming and the sound of failure is so satisfying.
Yeah. The music that plays when Vigo the Carpathian's on the screen is super creepy. Like it always creeped me out when I was a kid because they would show him like jumping out of the painting, almost like jumping upwards and out of the painting, and then like you'd see like his face, and then he'd be like doing this snarl on the screen, like almost like an Elvis thing. It was super creepy though.
Well, and I was just gonna try to remind you, and then realize you're not familiar with the movies. That's exactly what he did in the movie.
Oh, he did? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
We need to find some time to play through this at some point together, so I can experience how close to the movie it is or isn't. Because it sounds like it's pretty close to the movie, and I, as a child, enjoyed Ghostbusters 2. I know a lot of people say that they don't like it. I haven't. Well, I watched it maybe within the last 10 years. I've rewatched it.
Yeah, and
like I get it. It definitely was a cash grab, but as a kid, I didn't see that. Like, yeah. I really enjoyed, I love the first movie, and then I really enjoyed the second movie.
I also don't think you were walking around as a kid like little baby Justin being like, "Man, this is a cash grab."
That's pretty true.
Yeah. So the composer on this, some places say it's Mark Van Hecke. He's done, first off, a ton of licensed stuff, and he's done a lot of work with Activision, as well as David Crane. He did like A Boy and His Blob. He did the Simpsons games on the NES, Bart versus the Space Mutants and Bart versus the World. His very first game was Heavy Shredded in 1990. He's usually credited as just music or audio director or something like that. His last game as an audio director was Casper in 1996. Last game that we believe he composed was Star Trek Generations Beyond the Nexus in 1994. So that's that. Frank Covitz is the sound consultant. That's who he is labeled as. He only did 3 games: Heavy Shreddin', Ghostbusters 2, and David Crane's A Boy and His Blob, Trouble on Blobtonia, all of which came out in 1990. So he only pretty much did audio support on 1990. So, yeah, I don't really know, how much he did or did not do. So I figured I'd toss him in there as well. Let's move into to your your track. Oh, I can't wait for people to hear this one.
Me too. So this is from an early anime movie called Akira, which came out.
Akira.
When it came out. Yeah, Akira. So the game came out exclusively in Japan on the Famicom in 1988, and the track was called Track 23 and is composed by Toshiko Kawanishi.
And I just want to let everybody know about this track. You may want to turn it down a little bit because it is a loud one. Wow, Justin.
Yeah, welcome back. If you're still here, that was Akira, which came out in the Famicom in 1988. That was track 23, composed by Toshiko Kawanishi.
Oh my goodness. That was something. For the record, the song goes on for an additional 2 minutes and it doesn't change. So we're cutting it early. We're cutting you off, Justin. That's it.
I feel like my other podcast, The Arcane Machine, is bleeding over into this one with the weird esoteric stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if anybody is wondering what the heck, I would first point you to the film of the same name, which came out in the same year. Akira came out in 1988 in theaters in Japan. I don't think we actually saw it here until sometime in the 90s because getting Japanese animation was not a chief import for us in the 80s.
No.
Not until we started taking like Macross and turning it into Robotech and stuff like that.
Right.
But so I would point you to the movie because the movie's soundtrack is, for one, phenomenal, and for two, very, very strange.
I will say I really dig the beginning of this track. Mm-hmm. I really do. It has complete and total industrial vibes with that beat. It's like super Rammstein stuff. It's like
yeah. And well before Rammstein.
Oh yeah, for sure. And even when that screech comes in, that even then I'm like, because it's still got that backbeat. When you've got that backbeat going the whole time, like I was into it. I was definitely bobbing my head banging. I was feeling it. And it also had a bit of an off time signature.
Yeah, it was a little bit weird. I can't pinpoint the actual time signature, but it was definitely a weird one.
Yeah.
I also admit that partway through the song, after the high pitched stuff comes in, I just kind of wanted to go, the system is down. The system is down.
A little Strong Bad reference for you.
Yeah. But there's so much crazy stuff going on in this track, and it doesn't really match up with the music from the movie Akira, which is all pretty much a cappella and very, like I said, it's very, very strange. But the thing that I really like about this track and the soundtrack in general on this game, it feels to me very much like, if you made an Akira game on the NES, this is actually pretty much what I would expect the music to sound like, because you can't really get the vocal sounds from the movie into the NES. It's not going to sound right.
Sure.
So I thought this was a really good, either adaptation or just take on that crazy music.
The explosions in the background weird me out too, because I know they're trying to implement those explosions as percussion almost. And it just, to me, because it sounds like an explosion, it just sounds off. But coming from, I would imagine if you're coming from an industrial background, that fits really well because there's a lot of, in industrial music, sound effects are used as percussion a lot of the time. So that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Yeah. And it's fitting too with the Akira vibe. So you're right that it fits in with that. It's kind of neat that this game's published by Taito as well. So technically, Square Enix owns the rights to it because they own Taito.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's the same as with movies, where if you don't use it in a certain number of years, you lose it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think this is the only Akira game that was ever actually made.
Finished and released. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was going to follow it up with. I know there were other ones that were started, but they never actually completed them and released them.
Yeah, there was one for Genesis that got leaked fairly recently. There was also a pinball game that did get released.
Well, pinball games count the same as pachinko machines.
Well, sorry, to clarify, it was a video pinball game. It was on PS2.
Video pinball.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about like an actual physical pinball. And I'm like, that's not the same.
Yeah, no. It's a video pinball game called Psycho Ball, and it came out in Japan in 2002 and in Europe in 2003. So quite a while after, probably like right around the time where like anime was really like big and booming in the States.
Yeah.
Like that was right around the time when like, people were like, I was in college and I was like, well, we were both in college, separate locations, but I was watching a ton of anime on like Toonami and just like renting VHS tapes of anime and stuff like that. So
yeah, no, I feel that. Like my roommate and I, through most of college, like Toonami, Adult Swim, Toonami Midnight Run, all that stuff. Like we often fell asleep to it, even on school nights. It was just like we put the TV on and watch until it pass out, and then hope that we can get up for 8 a.m. classes.
I saw actually Akira in high school, and I was super weirded out by it. I thought it was way too too mature for me at the time. Like, my mind just couldn't wrap around it. You know what I mean? Like, I just couldn't understand it. I think if I watch it now, I wouldn't have any problems. But like, I think back then I was just getting into anime, so like, Vampire Hunter D was like my first introduction to anime in terms of like animated movie, like an actual movie. Other than like stuff like Sailor Moon and stuff like that.
That's really funny because my first two introductions to anime movies were Akira and Vampire Hunter D: Bloodlust.
Oh, that's cool.
So, that resonates, as they say.
Yeah, for sure.
So Toshiko Kawanishi has only one audio credit to his name, and that is Akira, 1988.
Word. Okay, nice, simple, sweet. My next pick is from an awesome Sega Genesis, Sega Master System, and Game Gear game, though this is the Genesis version we're playing. It's James Bond: The Duel, and this came out in 1993. Now, you may be saying to yourself, wait a minute, hold on. James Bond is an old franchise. We're going to get to that in just a second. This track is Space Hop, and it's by Matt Furness, and we're pretty sure that the drivers are by Sean Hollingworth. Hey, welcome back to XVGM Radio. That was James Bond: The Duel that came out on Game Gear, Sega Master System, and the version that we played, the Genesis version, which came out in 1993. I believe actually all the versions came out in 1993. This song was Space Hop, and it's by Matt Furness, and we think Sean Hollingworth did the drivers. There's a pretty good chance that that's the case. It's really funny. I wrote down in our document that we use drivers, ask Matt about this. I totally forgot to ask. Yeah, in all caps, and totally forgot to ask Matt. But Matt, if you are listening, let us know. Let us know if Sean did the drivers. I'm going to leave Sean's name off of this for now, but because I didn't get any official word. Anyways, you're probably sitting here going, Mike, James Bond: The Duel. I mean, James Bond, that was a franchise that came out like super...
in the 60s.
60s, yeah. So the reason why we picked this one is because it's based on the Timothy Dalton Bond era from the 80s. So that is why I was able to pick this track. And man, is it a banger. It's such a good song.
Yeah, I at first I thought that it was just You Spin Me Right Round for a while, and then it changed up a little. But it had a lot of that, like, I mean, a lot of the stuff is going to have 80s synthwave vibes, but this one in particular, it had, like, the beat was there, and it was really good. I like this. I have not seen many of the older James Bond movies, so I've not seen the Timothy Dalton era, but if the music of that era fits the music of the 80s, then this fits right in.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it's pretty appropriate. I mean, I would say it's not quite freestyle, but it does have a lot of Latin vibes that I got from this one with that that's very like that 80s dance beat that was also like hitting hard in the clubs and like the New York clubs around that time. So it definitely gave me that vibe. But I just love the lead synth here. You know, that dun, 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 dun. It's like almost like calypso, you know? It's such a great like chill dance track. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with Mr. Matt Furness on the Sega Genesis. He is probably one of the best Sega Genesis composers, if not the best Sega Genesis Western composer. And I know I'm saying Sega Genesis and talking about Western, aka the Mega Drive, at least as far as like the UK, because he's a UK based composer.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably say Tim Fallon is the next closest, but he really didn't do that much on the Genesis. But like Matt Furness, like so many games he did with Sean Hollingworth. So cool stuff.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
So what about this game?
Yeah.
I don't remember a movie called James Bond: The Duel. So what's up here?
Yeah. So as I was saying before, it's based on the Timothy Dalton era for the movies themselves. It's not it's not based on any specific movie. It's just like featuring Timothy Dalton, like he's on the cover and everything, but you're just going around from various different like enemy bases. Like I remember at one point you're on like a ship and you're trying to like rescue all these female hostages, and you've got to like place bombs to destroy a specific base. You know, you're going around like beating up thugs and bosses and various different bad dudes. So
nice.
Yeah, it's the first Bond video game that's not directly based on like any of the other prior visions or versions of James Bond. So it's got a brand new story, and it does include some of the like heavy hitters as far as bad guys go, like Odd Job, Jaws, etc. So they kind of did something similar to that with Everything or Nothing, which was coincidentally, this is the last Timothy Dalton outing or version of Timothy Dalton in any sort of like licensed Bond thing, and Everything or Nothing was the last licensed Bond thing as well that Pierce Brosnan did.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and that game was by Activision, and that's a fantastic game. I definitely highly recommend anybody that's into James Bond check out Everything or Nothing. It's basically like playing a James Bond movie. It's really, really good.
Oh.
Yeah, and if you're a fan of Pierce Brosnan, for like GameCube, Xbox, I think even the Game Boy Advance got a port, and it features his likeness. It features his voice and everything. So for Pierce Brosnan.
Ooh, that's cool.
It's a really, really good game. But just to pinpoint, there is a one Bond game that a company called Delphine developed called The Stealth Affair that did have an original storyline. And that, I guess, was the first one, supposedly, that had the license added. The character was originally based on, like, a Bond-style character named John Glames, apparently.
Huh.
Yeah. But this game, I have not played it. I've seen some gameplay footage of it, and the character himself, the visuals kind of remind me a little bit of, like, if you've ever played that Krusty the Clown game for Super NES or Genesis.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, where, like, the character's a little bit more shrunken down. He's not, like, super giant or big or anything. It's not super detailed. So it's more cartoony style as far as the visuals go. At least that's the vibe that I got from it.
Neat.
Yeah. So can't go wrong with Matt Furniss, though. I would play this game just for the soundtrack alone. Matt Furniss started off his very first game with Tubin in 1988. Let's just pick 3 random games because he's done so many games. Let's go with The Lion King. He did the Genesis music in The Lion King. Boogerman. He did the music in Boogerman in 1994. All right. So it looks like we were getting a call-in on our Patreon hotline. So we may as well go ahead and take that call. Caller, you are on the air. What can we play for you?
Hi, yeah. Could I get a large buffalo chicken pie and a cheese pie? Oh, and do you guys have any cheesy bread or breadsticks?
I think you got the wrong number, man. This is XVGM Radio. We are one number off from the pizza place.
Yeah, this happens all the time.
Oh, my bad. I could have sworn I had the right number. Well, it's a good thing that I am one of your Patreon supporters. Name's Chris Hart. And since you guys don't do pizza, could I get a slice of some Capcom NES goodness? How about the pizza eating contest theme from Yo Noid? Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and play Chris's request. This is Yo Noid. It came out on the NES in 1990. This track is level 3-4, and it's by Masakatsu Maekawa.
All right, that was Patreon Chris Hart's request, Yo Noid, which came out on the NES in 1990. The track was levels 3 and 4 and was composed by Masakatsu Maekawa.
I'm going to be honest with you. I like this song. I don't like this game.
No, I think I actually own this, and I feel like it was a mistake to pick up. It's not really that fun.
No.
The music's not bad. This track is really silly.
This game is actually a conversion of a totally different game. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not.
Yeah, it's a conversion of a Famicom game called Kamen no Ninja Hanamaru.
All right.
That came out in 1990 as well, and basically what they did was Capcom wanted to release the game stateside, but because the game was very Japanese, they were like, how are we going to release this stateside? So they teamed up with Domino's, and they were like, yo, let's throw the Yonoid character in there. So Yonoid character always annoyed me. I don't know. I know he's the Noid, and I know he's kind of supposed to annoy you, but mission accomplished.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like they did what they came out to do.
Yeah. This game uses a modified engine of the Wagyan Land games.
Oh.
Yeah, which we talked about, I think, on the Namco episode that we did, the Namco 163 chip. So the gameplay is very similar, but I don't know how they got away with something like that. I don't know. I guess because, I don't know, video games. So this game, it's weird. Like, you fight with a yo-yo, which was originally a hawk in the Japanese version. You get points by getting scrolls, and then you can get, like, power-ups and stuff like that. What's also weird about it is there's these, like, bizarre moments in the game where you have to do, like, pizza eating contests. So the boss battles in this, in the Japanese version, is based on like a card game, and in this Yonoid game, it's like a pizza eating contest. I don't know. It's it's weird. The game is just, I don't know. I couldn't get on board with it, but I can understand why some people would, because it was a Capcom game back then, and it looked pretty. It was a very bright, cheery game. And
it was a semi-popular character. Like even I feel like even if you didn't like the Noid because you weren't supposed to. It was still really cool to see a game about him.
For those of you who have no idea what the Noid is a character that Domino's Pizza made in the 80s, and he looked like a man in a bunny suit, a red bunny suit.
A red bunny suit, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, nowadays it would be like some sort of weird like leather vinyl fetish thing. I don't know. He looks weird.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Wasn't it usually like claymation too?
Yeah, I think he was actually, now that I think about it.
I don't think there was ever actually a guy in a suit. I think it was always a claymation thing.
That's not the Easter Bunny, it's just a guy in a suit.
Guy in a suit.
So apparently there was a cartoon called The Noids that was planned, and that would have featured the Noid, but it was scrapped because of complaints that it was just an advertising ploy and not a show for children. But at the same time, they made this Noid video game, so it's like, what?
Thank God they didn't make that show. Oh my God.
It would have been really bad.
Awful.
Apparently there was a computer game that came out in 1989 called Avoid the Noid.
That makes sense. That was, I think, the actual slogan was Avoid the Noid.
Yep. And that came out in 1989 on Commodore 64 and MS-DOS. I can only imagine. So apparently, they were just like, let's, I don't know. They were coming up with characters for everything back in the day. It's like, why not?
True.
Fun fact, this game had a fan-made sequel.
I saw that.
Which came out, I guess, as just like a ROM. Yeah.
It was an SNES ROM, wasn't it? Or was it an NES?
I don't know. That's just bonkers.
So Masakatsu Maekawa started out way back in 1988 doing music on Yokai Dochuki, and then went on to bounce between things like sound programming, sequencing, supervising, and music. So did music on Adventure Island 2 in 92, Adventure Island 3 in 92, and that seems to be it. But they did sound programming on Splatterhouse 2 in 92 and Splatterhouse 3 in 93. They did sound design on Pack Attack in 94, and their last game, they're listed as sound for Goemon New Age Shutsudo in 2002.
Interesting.
Let's move on to my next pick. This is going to be an Amiga game from 1990. This is Back to the Future Part 2. The track is Stage 4, Enchantment Under the Sea. It is composed by Alan Silvestri and David Whitaker. Hey, welcome back to the future, part 2. That was an Amiga game that came out in 1990, and the track was called Stage 4, Enchantment Under the Sea by Alan Silvestri and David Whitaker.
I can't think of that phrase "under the sea" without thinking of Little Mermaid.
Mermaid, yeah. No, that's fair.
Under the sea.
Under the sea.
I was gonna say Alan Silvestri is a music composer, no? Like for like movies and stuff.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he did like the Super Mario Brothers movie, if I recall.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I always thought that this was Johnny B. Good, wasn't it?
No, this is not Johnny B. Good. It sounds like it could be, but it doesn't have the right melody in there. I think they took like the music from that part of the movie and like rocked it up a bit.
Yeah.
And came up with this, because Enchantment Under the Sea is from the 1955 portion where, you know, his mother is trying to get in bed with him.
Right. Gross. It's kind of weird that we picked separately two different sock hop style songs.
I was just gonna say this felt a lot like the driving music from
Ghostbusters 2.
From the Ghostbusters 2 game.
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree with that. Yeah, it had it had that Amiga vibe to it, though. I mean, just listening to it, it had those. I don't know. To me, this is like borderline twarp in a way.
Borderline twarp, particularly on the bass, I'm assuming.
It's got that like that lead synth. It's very twarpy-ish. It wasn't bad. I enjoyed it.
I guess I don't notice the twarp as much when it's on higher pitch stuff. Like it really bugs me on the bass, like the drums, the percussion, and the bass.
Yeah.
But I guess I just don't hear it as much on the higher notes.
So this is Back to the Future Part 2. So I would imagine it covers the second movie, right?
Yes. So there's 5 levels in this game based on scenes from the actual movie. So you've got Marty McFly, Jennifer Parker, and Emmett Brown going from 1985 to 2015 to prevent the couple's future children from turning out terrible and whatnot. So it's the same plot.
Okay.
The game has an opening sequence that shows the DeLorean time travel machine as it travels to 2015. So like the opening is going to 2015, and the first level is actually a side scroller where you use the hoverboard around Hill Valley.
Huh. But what's weird is that if it's based on the second movie, but the Enchantment Under the Sea takes place in the first movie.
Right, but don't forget that they have to go back in time in this movie because Biff gets the almanac and then he goes back to like 1955 or something to give it to young Biff.
Okay.
And so in this game, like the first level is that hoverboard level. The second level is a puzzle game, actually, where you're playing as Jennifer and she's at the house where she's at the future house and trying to not get caught while she's there. The third level is like a beat 'em up with Marty going to 1985 and finding out that everything's changed due to the alteration because of old Biff with the almanac. And then Biff goes back to 1955 to give the almanac to his younger self and to become a millionaire. So the fourth level is another puzzle game where you have to arrange tiles to form a picture of Marty playing in a band, which is the scene from the first and the second film.
Okay, gotcha. You're gonna kick me at least digitally. I've never seen any of the Back to the Future movies.
Jesus, man. No, never seen Ghostbusters, never seen Back to the Future.
I've seen Ghostbusters. Actually, it was funny.
Well, yeah, more recently, I remember.
Yeah, because when I started dating my now wife, we were first starting to go out back in 2009, late 2009. It was like our second date. We saw Ghostbusters. She was like, "You've never seen Ghostbusters?" I was like, "No." She's like, "We got to fix this." And I think we watched it on Netflix or something like that. Yeah, because it was right around Halloween time, so it was like on Netflix. So I have seen the first. And I watched a lot of the cartoon for Ghostbusters. But yeah, Back to the Future, I always caught on TV, and it was always like parts, and it never grabbed me enough to make me want to sit down and watch the whole thing. So I've seen bits and pieces of Back to the Future movies. I've just never seen them all the way through.
Wow. Yeah. We'll have to fix that at some point. I really like them. The third movie is probably my favorite.
This movie and game, I guess, follow the movies pretty closely then, would you say?
Pretty much, yeah.
Cool.
I'm trying to remember. Reading through the gameplay information. Like, I haven't played these games. I feel like I tried to play the first one way back when I was a kid, and it just, like a lot of these licensed games on the NES, I never really found them to be fun because they were just weird, or they didn't turn out the way that, like, they didn't really. They either didn't follow the story the way that I wanted it to, or the way that it should have, or the gameplay itself was just really weird. So.
I played the second and third game. It was like 2 games in one, or based on, it was 1 game but 2 movies.
Yeah.
And that came out on the NES. And that one I played, I rented it like back in the day. It was okay. I mean, it was very clearly a Mario ripoff. Whereas the first game that came out in the NES, like, I don't know. I can't get into it personally, but I know a lot of people love that game, so I don't know. But it apparently follows the movie semi-closely or whatever.
That's what I seem to remember.
Yeah.
Composers on this one, Alan Silvestri started out doing music on this game, Back to the Future Part 2 in 1990. I mean, I say started on, he's done movie soundtracks and whatnot, but as far as the video game world, he's credited for Super Back to the Future Part 2, which was, I believe, the Super NES. Nope, I'm a liar. Nope, I'm not.
Is it the Super Famicom game?
Didn't look right. Yeah, it's a Super Famicom one.
Yeah, that one's really good.
Yeah, he did the track Back to the Future Overture, so that he's the one who wrote that.
Right. Yeah, it's used. It's used in all the songs. I want to say that that's a Hitoshi Sakamoto track, but I could be wrong about that.
Also credited on Hannah Montana the movie in 2009 for Butterfly Away. And then the Back to the Future games that came out in 2010 and 2011 where they were episodic.
Oh, yes, the Telltale games.
Yep, got credited on those. Yep. And then finally Lego Marvel Avengers in 2016 for the Star Spangled Man.
Nice.
And then we have David Whittaker, who started out doing video game music in Star Wars in 1984, did the music on that. And this list is so long, I'm going to do what you did earlier and pick 3 more games. Let's go with Rampage in 1987. Music on Krusty's Super Funhouse in 1992.
Oh, we were just talking about that.
Yep. And most recently credited on the Lego Ninjago movie video game in 2017.
Okay, then. Interesting. All right. We're going to get into a absolute banger of a soundtrack. This is from...
I'm excited for this.
Oh, my goodness. This is from Transformers Devastation. This came out on the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 4, and Xbox One, all in 2015. This track is called Kickback. It's also known as the Insecticons theme, and it's by Tetsuya Shibata and Jun Okubo from Unique Note Company Limited. All the hits.
One shall stand,
All the bits.
one shall fall.
XVGM Radio.
Oh man, was I right or was I right? That was a banger.
So good.
So good. That was Transformers Devastation that came out on the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One in 2015. That track was Kickback, also known as Insecticon's theme, and that was by Tetsuya Shibata and Jun Okubo, and they're from a group called Unique Note Company Limited. Oh man, where to start? I love this song. It is so awesome. It's metal, for sure, right up my alley, but it also has, I don't know, like the beginning of the song doesn't feel like it has a specific place. It feels like electricity. It's got very buzzy kind of guitars. They got like guitars that are like shreddy, but they're also kind of buzzy like electric, like like they're kind of
Yeah.
You know what I
Especially
mean?
I noticed a lot more towards the end there.
Yeah.
And it was almost on the verge. I don't want to call it dubstep because there are other songs on the soundtrack that sound more dubstep, but
Yeah.
it had this electronic quality to it. Like the way that it cut on and off was so like instantaneous.
Yeah. You actually played a track off this soundtrack.
It was episode 14, which was Justin's pick.
Yes. Yeah, you picked a track off of this, and I remember being
The Soundwave track.
Yes, and I remember being blown away at that one, and hearing this one now, I'm just like, oh man. Like, I actually texted Justin after I picked this track, and I was like, yo, I gotta get this game, because the music is so good. It's a Platinum Games developed title, so you know it's gonna be, probably awesome. And you even mentioned that it was.
Yeah, I gotta go back and play it. I gotta go back and finish it because I never got around to finishing it because other things came up. But it was so much fun to play. It handled, like, there's a lot of stuff that you can do, and it's almost intimidating to watch somebody else play who's deep into the game. But just like it starts you out pretty easily, and like once you pick it up, it's so easy to play.
And it's based on the Generation 1 Transformers, right, from the 80s.
Yes.
Yeah. See, that was my jam. Like, I also watched Beast Wars as well, but I kind of fell off the map at that point and really didn't get back into it until the movie came out, and then I got kind of into it again, so. But anyways, yeah, Transformers Devastation, gotta get this one. The composers, Tetsuya Shibata and Jun Okubo, they are credited under Unique Note Company Limited, which is a kind of like a private company that does like music or hires musicians for games, so. But Shibata started off with Vampire Savior 2 in 1997 as the sub-music composer. Did a lot of sub-music composer for a lot of fighting games for Capcom, mostly in the Darkstalkers and Plasma Sword series, and continued working on games like Heavy Metal Geomatrix for the Dreamcast. Later went on to do stuff like Resident Evil Outbreak, Dead Rising in 2006, they were the sound manager on.
Nice.
And then Monster Hunter Tri in 2009. Pretty much like then for a few years did like Super Smash Brothers games. And then their final game that they've recently worked on was Resident Evil 5 Gold Edition, which came out in 2019 when it got ported to newer consoles.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. And then Jun Okubo only has a credit for this game. So, nice and easy.
Yeah.
What was your favorite Transformer?
Optimus Prime probably, because who doesn't love Optimus Prime?
Yeah.
But if we take Optimus Prime out of it, it's between Wheeljack and Ironhide.
Okay. I was more of a fan of the Decepticons, so...
Oh, I thought you meant specifically Autobots.
Oh, Autobots. Anybody.
If it's Decepticons included, Soundwave?
Yeah, me too.
Soundwave.
Soundwave was my favorite.
I love the robotic voice, and I love that it was Frank Welker.
Yeah, and I love that it was basically Dr. Claw's voice, but just like with a auto-tuner on it or whatever.
Yeah.
Or a vocoder, like a vocoder
vocoder.
effect. Yeah, so cool. So
Yes.
let's move from a robot fighting battle into a wartime style with something a little bit more serious. What do you got for us?
Sure. So next I'm going to play for you Platoon, which was a 1988 NES game of a 1987 film. The track is called Boss, and the composers on this are Naoki Kodaka and Akito Takeuchi. All right, welcome back to XVGM Radio. That was Platoon on the NES. Came out in 1988. The track was Boss, and it was composed by Naoki Kodaka and Akito Takeuchi, and that is specifically the NES version.
Yeah.
There was some talk of some other composers, but it turns out that the Amiga, Amstrad, CPC, and all those were done by David Whittaker, and the Commodore 64 version was done by
Jonathan Dunn. Yeah, this still sounds like something that Jonathan Dunn maybe would have done. I don't know. Yeah, whoops.
Maybe they're trying to compile in the style of Jonathan Dunn.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's a very repetitive track, and I don't get boss theme out of this. I get like picking your stage, or I get like story. You know what I mean? Like something's about to happen, like that sort of thing. It's very repetitive, which is why we cut it so short. But yeah, it's because it goes on, very similar to the Akira track. It just goes on and on and on with the same thing. Yeah.
Well, I can see where you get that. I didn't get that at first, but like as you said, I was like, oh yeah, no, I could see this like totally playing during like a Ninja Gaiden story cutscene or something.
Yeah, for sure.
But it kind of reminds me of the boss music from some other games, particularly I want to say Lethal Weapon on the Game Boy, but it might have been Lethal Weapon 2. I can't remember which one I actually had, but I had one of the Lethal Weapon games on the Game Boy.
Yeah, it's just weird. I just don't get a boss vibe from this. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah. So I've never seen this movie, Platoon. Is this the one with Charlie Sheen or no?
But it was written and directed by Oliver Stone, and it starred Tom Berenger, Willem Dafoe, Charlie Sheen, Keith David, Kevin Dillon, John C. McGinley, Forrest Whitaker, and Johnny Depp.
That is an all-star cast. Goodness.
Yes, seriously. It was part of a trilogy of films that Oliver Stone wrote and directed on the Vietnam War.
I was going to say Hot Shots 1 and 2.
Yeah. So it was Platoon in 86, Born on the 4th of July in 89, and Heaven and Earth in 1993.
Oh, okay. I've heard of those. Now, do they have the same cast and everything, or is it like different stories just in the same universe?
No, Born on the 4th of July stars Tom Cruise.
Okay.
Heaven and Earth has Tommy Lee Jones, Hang Estengor.
So it's probably the
Joan
same like universe. I don't know.
All of these movies were written, were basically based on Oliver Stone's own experience in the Vietnam War.
Oh, so, wow. That's cool.
This movie does follow Charlie Sheen's character, so he is the main character of the folks here, and it's I've heard that it's a very serious movie, and it's very moving. I've never seen it. I am not really into war movies. So
you've played this one or no?
I have. As a young child, I rented this multiple times, and like the first time I rented it, I started playing it, and I was like, this is a boring war game, and I brought it back. And then like a year or so later, I was like, I don't think this is too bad, and I brought it home, and I enjoyed it a little bit more, but I still didn't get very far. Like every time I played it, I got a little bit farther, but unfortunately, I do not remember much about it.
Sound-wise, this doesn't sound like Sunsoft. I know this was published by Sunsoft. You would think they would have Dat Sunsoft Bass, but I think this was right before Dat Sunsoft Bass was really becoming like a thing. And so I feel like they were just like kind of working with what they had available. But, I definitely don't get a Sunsoft vibe from this. If you told me like, I don't know, Kemco made this, I'd be like, all right, that makes sense. But not Sunsoft. It's just, I don't get a Sunsoft vibe, and I don't get a Naoki Kodaka vibe off this either.
So speaking of Naoki Kodaka, they started doing music way back in 1986 with Dead Zone, continued on to do Spy Hunter in 87 uncredited, and Shanghai in 87 as well. We've got Blaster Master in 88, they were music composition. Gremlins 2, The New Batch in 1990, they were music composition. They did music staff on Euphoria the Saga. That's a fun little game.
Yep.
Then Batman Return of the Joker in 1991, they did sound program. Albert Odyssey in 93, they did music. And their last credit is Blaster Master Zero in 2017.
I don't know how much he actually composed. I think they probably just used his originals, because I believe he's retired as a professor in Japan, if I recall. Okay. Yeah, so I don't think he... I think his last game that he actually composed for was Albert Odyssey, Legend of Eldine in 1996.
All right. And then Akito Takeuchi is labeled as a music programmer. So they started doing sound programming on Dead Zone in 86. They did Platoon in 88 and Outlive in 89 doing sound programmer.
Yeah, they did a bunch of production stuff too, as well, like all the way up until 2000. So pretty much moved in from audio to programming, and then design and production. So just kind of continued working on games.
Looks like we are getting a call on the regular call-in line. Let's see who we got. XVGM Radio. Who is this, and what can we do for you?
Hey, how's it going? I want to order a slice of pizza, but you know what? Instead of a slice, make it a whole pie.
I'm sorry to tell you this, sir. I don't know why this is happening today. This is XVGM Radio. We are not a pizzeria. You're off by one number.
What are you saying there? I can't get no pizza? I mean, hey, Adrian, you believe this over here? I'm trying to order a pizza. Adrian!
Oh my! That sounded
violent.
Yeah, it also kind of sounded like Mr. Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, I don't think he would call into this show though.
No, probably not. But he did a bunch of movies in the 80s.
That's right, he did. One of which is Rambo, which came out on the NES in 1987 as well.
Oh.
Yeah, it was kind of like a Zelda 2 clone. So the song that we're going to play for Mr. Stallone, I guess, is Mission Theme, that is also called Vietnam Jungle. It's by Toru Hasabe and Minky Motoyama. welcome back to XVGM Radio. That was Rambo on the NES. That came out in 1987. That was Mission Theme Vietnam Jungle, and that was by Toru Hasabe and Minky Motoyama. Now, Minky Motoyama is labeled as special thanks for music, so I don't know in what capacity they helped, but this is their only credit. Just to kind of throw that out there. And then I figure, since I'm already talking about Minky, Toru Hasabe started with this game in 1987, then did Romance of the Three Kingdoms 8 in 2002, so a huge gap between 87 and 2002. Followed it up with Star Ocean Till the End of Time, where they were credited as drums, since Motoi Sakuraba did the soundtrack on that, and then did 2 different Dynasty Warriors games, and then Final Fantasy XIV Online and Final Fantasy XIV Online A Realm Reborn in 2013. They're labeled as drums for both of those.
Very cool.
And you really get the drumming vibe from this. It's got some really tight, snappy NES drums. I dig it.
Yeah, the track itself was kind of surprising because it didn't feel to me like I expected a Rambo track to feel. The music in this track was more like in like a major key. It was bright. It was like hopeful, and I don't really know a lot about the Rambo movies, so maybe I'm just out of the loop here, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of like death, destruction, and despair, and that's not what I hear when I hear this track.
Yeah, no, there's just a lot of Adrian and, you know, guns and everything. This game is interesting. This is like a Zelda 2 clone in a way. Like gameplay-wise, it's near identical to playing Zelda 2, but
even with the guy that says "I am error."
Yeah. So Zelda 2 came out 87. So this came out the same year as Rambo and vice versa. But Rambo came out in 88 in the US. So it came out in December of 87. So it had almost a year's worth of development time. So I'm wondering if they saw Zelda 2 and they were like, yo, that's awesome. Let's make a Rambo game based on that. But instead of an experience meter, you have an anger meter. But it functions the same. But yeah, it's a side-scrolling game. You can go through forests and different areas. You have to go to the camp where they have like the base, and you have to like talk to people and stuff like that. So, you know, it's kind of similar in that sense where you're still getting that human interaction as Zelda 2. It's got solid music. It's just blood pumping. This is just like such a great galloping bass infused track. It feels more like Mega Man and it feels less like Rambo.
Okay. You don't get powers though. Well,
yeah, that's true. That'd be really funny if like Rambo shot somebody and then he grabbed their arm and he was like, "Now I've got your power." That would be awesome. Yo, Adrian, now I got your power. What's really weird is in the end, when you're finishing the game, you throw a giant kanji for the sign anger at Murdoch, who's like the guy giving you your missions or something like that. I've only seen the first Rambo, which is actually, it is an action movie, but it is more of a drama, I would say, because it's more of a social commentary on what happens when soldiers came home from Vietnam. So it's kind of really interesting because like he struggles, he can't find work, and like everyone was hated, but because like they didn't want soldiers in America. Like a lot of people didn't want soldiers from America in this war. Yeah. And so a lot of soldiers got a lot of grief for that and couldn't find work, struggled, were homeless, etc. So it's kind of like John Rambo's mission that he's dealing with this and the fallout from coming back to the U.S. as what would normally be considered a hero status, but he's not. And then the other two movies are more like the action movies that you've seen for Rambo movies, if I recall. I haven't seen the second or third Rambos, despite owning them on Blu-ray. But I did see the Rambo, the fourth one, and that one was pretty good. Anyways, yeah, when you throw this kanji at Murdoch, when you return to the base, he apparently turns into a frog. That's silly and weird.
That's what happens in the movie, right?
Oh, for sure.
He finds this guy and he turns him into a frog.
He throws a giant kanji at him. Yeah. All right. What do you got next for us?
All right. So I have a Game Boy game that came out in 1992. This is Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. The track is BGM 6, and it was composed by Amy Dyson. That was Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yes.
The Game Boy game that came out in 1992, and the track was called BGM 06, composed by Amy Dyson, credited at the time as Amy Bamberger.
Oh, okay then. This cartoon was pretty cool. I watched a cartoon. I know it's like a franchise or something like that, right? Supposedly.
Yeah, it started with a movie in 1978 called Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Yeah, it was like a parody film, like sci-fi horror movies at the time.
I remember this as a cartoon. I never saw the movie, of course.
Me too.
Yeah, I watched the cartoon.
I know I've mentioned this to you for a couple of other cartoons, but you should check out Saturday Morning Cartoon Boom. They have an episode on this cartoon as well, and it's pretty funny.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, this game is based off the cartoon, not the movie.
Okay. So, what did you think of the track?
I thought it was really neat, particularly for, we don't play a lot of Game Boy music on the show, I don't think. I think for a Game Boy track, it's got a pretty decent range, and it feels pretty full. So,
yeah.
I also think it's kind of like, it's not quite like the Sock Hop songs we played earlier, but it's pretty bouncy.
It's got a nice bounce to it, though. It's got a nice cadence, and I dig it's got almost like a surf rock vibe to it. Down, 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 you know, like it's got that like kind of punk-ish surfer rock vibe, and that kind of fits with the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, especially the idea of like a parody movie. Typically, a lot of that stuff is more like indie-ish, so that kind of makes sense.
If I remember, the movie and also the cartoon had kind of a surf rock vibe to them. So the cartoon was from the 90s, and there was a lot of that like surfer dude culture in a lot of the cartoons. We had like main characters that were kind of like almost like Bill and Ted.
Yeah, I can agree with that. So this game, what is the gameplay like? It's like a action game?
It's like a 2D platformer.
Okay.
It was originally on the NES in 1991, and then they ported it to the Game Boy in 92. So they weren't both developed by the same company, but it was meant to be a port, so it was virtually the same. So you play as Chad Finletter, a young boy in a quest to stop the evil scientist Dr. Putrid T. Gangrene from unleashing his doomsday tomato. Basically the same sort of overarching plot from the show.
Gotcha.
So you have to fight through hordes of mutant tomatoes, and you have to do it all by yourself. So it's kind of like a platformer beat 'em up. Just like a lot of other platforming games, like you jump on the enemies to kill them, and considering most of the enemies are tomatoes, it makes sense. It's kind of funny, just squashing tomatoes.
Okay, cool. The composer Amy Dyson, but was known as Amy Bamberger. So, what, she must have gotten married, and so her original name was Amy Bamberger. Maybe?
Bamberger.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So she started out in 1991 doing music on a game called The Flash, which is the DC hero.
Yep.
And that was a Game Boy game. And then she did this game, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and in 1994 did music and sound on Riddick Bowie Boxing.
Cool. And then, of course, we also found that Ed Bogus is labeled as a composer for this game as well, kind of like late in the game while we were recording this. But
he's listed on the Wikipedia page, and Amy is not. But he started doing music on Seahorse Hide and Seek in 1984. A lot of stuff on here, so I'll just pick out a few different things. Tetris in 1988 did some music. Swamp Thing in 1992 did the music, and Gran Turismo 4 in 2004 he did a track, Moon Over the Castle, orchestral version.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're gonna move into my last pick, which is from one of my favorite childhood cartoons. This is Masters of the Universe. This came out on the Amstrad CPC, the Atari ST, the MSX, and the ZX Spectrum, and the version that we're playing is the Commodore 64 version, which came out in 1987. This is the title theme, and it's by Mr. or Mrs. Unknown, though there is a possibility it's by David K. Pridmore. We'll talk about it after the break. Welcome back. That was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, but the game itself is just called Masters of the Universe. Came out originally on the Amstrad CPC, the Atari ST, the MSX, ZX Spectrum, and the version that we played, the Commodore 64, which came out in 1987. This is the title theme, and it's either by Mr. or Mrs. Unknown or David K. Pridmore, which we'll talk about in just a sec. What do you think of this song? Pretty faithful to the cartoon theme.
Yeah, I was going to say, was this based off of the cartoon or off of the movie?
Oh, for sure based off the cartoon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's got the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's the He-Man theme.
Yeah, no, that's why I was wondering, because when I was looking at the article on, I think, Wikipedia for the game, it talked about the movie a little bit, so I was just confused, because I heard that the cartoon theme was like, I don't remember the cartoon theme actually being in the movie, but I haven't seen the movie in a long time, so maybe.
Yeah, you're not the only one. I have also not seen the movie in a while, so...
I dig this. It's not super busy. Like, there's not a ton going on. It feels kind of sparse to me, but I really love the sounds that come out of the C64.
Yeah.
And this track is no exception.
Yeah, no, I agree. This game came out on so many different systems, but there were other like Masters of the Universe games that came out on a bunch of other stuff, but this is called quote-unquote the arcade game, which is weird because I don't think it actually came out in arcades. So yeah, what? But it's a game where you play as He-Man, also known as Prince Adam, but you're not playing as Prince Adam, you're playing as He-Man. It's an adventure action kind of game. You're kind of going through doors and running around forests and everything. I mean, it's the Commodore 64, so really anything that's on the C64 that takes advantage of the hardware is impressive by my standards. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat. It's definitely different. So actually, upon doing a little further digging, and this is actually the movie game. So you are correct. This is based on the movie. It's an arcade beat 'em up kind of style game with some brawling and shooter elements. And actually, the graphics are not bad. They tried to represent like some of the movie elements, especially on that loading screen, the title screen and everything. So it is actually based on the movie. You do play as He-Man. His character design looks weird. Like 1 minute it looks like you're running around almost like a chibi style character, like a really tiny, teeny tiny like He-Man kind of beating up guys like top-down Zelda style. And then some other screenshots are like you talking to people through like a communicator or something like that. It's almost like the first Ninja Turtles game in a way, but like top-down instead of side-scrolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of neat. And there's this like bar on the left-hand side that has like a sword, and there's also like a staff, which I think is like Skeletor's staff. So I believe the point of the game is to find the chords so you can play the key. So you're trying to save the sorceress and defeat Skeletor. And to do that, you've got to get the key, He-Man, which Gwildor has. But yeah, it's like you get He-Man, you get Teela, you get Man-at-Arms, and you get Skeletor, and you get the sorceress, and that's pretty much it. I was a huge Masters of the Universe fan. I was about 3 years old when I watched it. That was my first like fandom. Like no joke. That was like I would go to preschool and I would tell them to not call me Mike, but to call me He-Man.
Oof.
And like I refused to be answered like by my name. I was like, no, I'm He-Man. Like you're gonna call me He-Man. And they were like, all right, Mike. And I'm like, who? Yeah. So that is my cross to bear, I guess. So I could not find a composer for this officially listed. If you look at the credits online for this game, I was not really able to find much. Although that was when I was looking for Masters of the Universe, the cartoon game. Ben Daglish, who unfortunately passed away back in 2018. Apparently he was the composer on this one. He did a lot of really famous games like The Last Ninja, Trap, Deflector, The Mask 2, and The Mask on the Amstrad CPC. I will pick a few other games. Pac-Mania in 1989 did the Atari ST version. And Death Wish 3 for the Commodore 64. So, yeah, he did so much music for that C64 sound chip with the SID chip. So ZX Spectrum, he was a European composer.
Yeah.
So that was what he did for the most part. But yeah, unfortunately, sadly passed away back in 2018. But most of his time was freelance. But he was employed by the company Gremlin Graphics for a while, who did make this game. So mystery solved. It's not David K. Pridmore. It is Ben Daglish.
So let's move into the last track of the episode. This is going to be The Goonies, which is a 1986 Famicom exclusive. The track is a Cavern Theme, and it was by Satoe Terashima. All right, welcome back from the final track of the night. That was The Goonies, 1986 Famicom exclusive. That was the Cavern Theme by Satoe Terashima.
That was good stuff. Good old school retro Konami stuff on the Famicom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thought it was pretty appropriate to go out on. Pretty rockin' track. You also mentioned during the break that this sounds like another song off of the Goonies soundtrack.
Yeah, like the movie soundtrack, not like the score.
Yeah, not the score.
Yeah, I actually have the soundtrack on vinyl, and I've listened to it quite a bit. It sounds like a song called 8 Arms to Hold You. It has, I don't know, like the keyboard runs on this are very similar to that song.
Yeah, no, they are, and the melody. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but there are definitely similarities. So I wonder if that song inspired this track.
I could see that. Yeah. This game is great, though. Have you played it?
No, I've only ever played the Goonies 2, and I wasn't really a big fan. Like, I own it, and I know how to play it now and whatnot, but I was not a fan of it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But, we didn't get this in the States, so I never got a chance to play it.
It's a lot more of a arcadey style game in the sense that you're just going from level to level. I can't remember if you're trying to rescue kids or what, But I have the Famicom game itself on cart, and I've played it a couple times, and it's really good. I will say the music, in my opinion, is a little better in the sequel. Mostly
There's some pretty good stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's good music in this first game. It's a fun game, and it's really quite a challenge too when you get further into the stages. But it feels more like a mix of like City Connection type gameplay, not gameplay in terms of like moving around, grabbing a car or driving around as a car, but like that arcade style vibe or feel to it, where you're just going from level to level. And there's no real like overarching like story. It's not like an adventure where you've got to figure out where to go and what to do. It does have some kind of like labyrinth type style maps, but they aren't that difficult to navigate through, at least early on in the game. But yeah, the whole point's to get to the end of the stage, and it's a fun little game.
Yeah, it looks like the game actually follows the film roughly.
Yeah.
So there's stages that resemble the restaurant, the caverns, and a pirate ship. And it also kind of recreates one of the scenes from the film in which everybody's on the beach watching as the Inferno ship sails away.
Oh, okay. Pretty neat.
So, yeah, should see if I can find this either in ROM or come over and check it out at your place.
Yeah, when we're no longer quarantined. So the composer on this one, Satoe Terashima?
Yeah, that is their name. They started out doing music in a little game called Vampire Killer in 1986.
Yes.
So I'm sure you are familiar.
A little bit.
They also did music in King Kong 2, Ikari no Megaton Punch in 1986, then Castlevania in 86, Russian Attack in 87, Life Force in 87, The Goonies 2 in 87, and that was their last actual video game composition. Everything above that is original music used by, like, I Want to Be the Guy, the movie, the game.
Right.
And a Bobo's Big Adventure. So.
Yeah. The music in this one it's almost as if like they didn't add any layers to it. Like it's the Goonies are good. Not this particular track, but like the Cyndi Lauper song, "The Goonies Are Good Enough," is like the first stage theme. It's good in this version, but it's so much better in the second because they add like layers of different octaves, which really makes this song kind of stand out a lot more. So it's a good version. It's a competent version, but I like the sequel music better.
That's fair.
Yeah, but gameplay-wise, I like the first game better than the second game, personally.
No, I can see that. I mean, like I said, I enjoy the second game, but it's not in my top 10 games.
Sure.
I own it mostly for the nostalgia, and I mean, the last time I played it all the way through, like, it's not super difficult. It's just weird and confusing because it's not always obvious what you have to do.
Yeah, true. So, favorite tracks of the episode licensed from the 80s. What track do you pick, Justin?
Oh, hands down, Transformers Devastation, Kick Back.
Yeah, me too.
No question.
Me too.
Like there was a lot of good stuff in this episode. I'd like not to talk down about anything that we've played here,
Sure.
but that just head and shoulders above everything else.
I gotta say, I really dig the James Bond track as well as a second track, and I don't know what it is about that Akira track, but I keep going back to it. It's like a secret banger. Like the first time I listened to it, I was like, "Wow, Justin should really save this for like if we did a worst music episode." But then I like was listening to it more and more, and the more I listened to it, the more I really liked it. So
yeah, no, that's very fair. I would agree. I that's up there pretty high. I think my second pick would probably be Stage 4, Enchantment Under the Sea from Back to the Future 2.
Okay, word.
So, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons, without whom this show's continued improvement would be impossible. They are Alex Messenger, Scott McElhone, Cam Worma, Chris Hart, Dan Lawton, Chris Murray, Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, Jordan and Anson Davis, Chris Myers, Llama Adam, Jeremy Rutz, Peter Panda, Bedroth of the Very Good Music VGM podcast, Jason Super Jess Doss, Nick Davis, Matthew Hanola, Brad Austin, Mixmaster, and the Autistic Gamer 89. If you would like to become a patron, you can sign up at patreon.com/xvgmradio. There you can see the different tiers as well. Just $1 gets you a thank you and access to our monthly live shows.
You can visit our website, xvgmradio.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and learn more about your hosts, as well as any of our guests or composers that we've had on the show.
If you'd like to reach out to us, you can always email us at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
And if you'd like what you've heard, please consider giving us a rating on iTunes and a review.
You can also join our Facebook group and chat with other VGM lovers at www.facebook.com/groups/xvgmradio, where we talk about everything from current game news to sharing awesome VGM tracks, or just talking about the podcast itself.
And you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle for both of those sites is at XVGM Radio.
If you don't have any other social media or just want to try something unique, check us out on our Discord group chat. Links will be in the show notes.
All right, next episode, Justin, we are coming up on a milestone. Did you know that?
We are. We've been talking about it for a while.
A while.
Maybe it's a while stone.
Yes. Episode 50, we are going to be featuring in 2 weeks all fan picks. These are picks that are chosen by you guys. We got a ton of requests, so thank you so much for reaching out to us to let us know what you wanted to hear. So we'll be playing your songs, and we're really excited to do so. So it should be a really fun episode. I'm sure we'll do something, maybe play some commercials from, the past 50 episodes. We'll keep it special.
Yeah, there you go.
Cool.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah. So this is He-Man.
And Batman.
Signing off for XVGM Radio. During Beast Wars and also during the movie, when the movie came out, I went back and watched it and really enjoyed it.
With Orson Welles as Unicron.
Yes. And he doesn't talk about peas. Frozen peas.
No, he doesn't.
Yes. And they were like, all right, Mike. And I'm like, who? Yeah. So that is my cross to bear, I guess.
Oh, Lord. It's a big oof.
Come on. You don't have moments like that in your life, Justin?
Oh, I do. I just don't talk about them. There are plenty of things that keep me up at night. I'm just like, why did I do that in third grade?
I was
why
3.
Did I say that in sixth grade?
I was 3. I could see that. Yeah. You're going to kick me. I also have never seen the Goonies all the way through.
All right, I quit. This is done. We're done. We're through. Never talk to me or my son again.
Yeah, sorry.